Hello and welcome to another Best Junglers episode, this one for patch 14.16. And in this patch we have Death Timer nerfs, Blade of the Ruin King nerfs, Black Cleaver buffs, yet again, and a few other changes, so while not directly related to champions, systems can often really shake up the meta or change who is the best. We will look at the overall best junglers for everybody to play, as well as for low MMR and high MMR, and if you want to stay attuned to the meta developments and the best way to actually carry from the jungle with these champions, you absolutely must head to Virkayu.gg. Not only do I have a free jungle improvement resource, I also have a dedicated program with jungle video courses, jungle coaching classes, a jungle VOD library, special weekly content you'll see nowhere else. All of this available through a premium jungle Discord, which is highly active, a huge community that help each other climb using my jungle program and courses. As we have seen by everybody hitting their peak rank goals in Split 1 and Split 2 of Season 14 as fast as possible. So to climb faster than everybody you know and to jungle div every game you play, head to Virkayu.gg or click the link in the description below. Now on the face of it, things do look a little bit similar, but I would urge you to wait until the end of the A2 page to hear the juice. First up we have Lilia, because the juice really is in Bambi's favor. The champion is simply an abomination when it comes to skirmishing power, scaling, level 6 spiking, flash interactions, healing, and basically just itemization dominance. Yes, people are like, yeah, but they nerfed the secondary healing. Again, it simply doesn't matter. She simply does way too much damage, and you can build tank or hybrid tank and become an unkillable demon. Even though you do less damage, you just don't die because healing plus tank itemization. The flexibility is there for this champion, and I do not believe she is weak enough early for how hard she snowballs and scales. And when those words come together to form a sentence, you've got a meta-defining top-tier champion. I urge you all to play Lilia while she's free low. Normally I'd say I'm 99% sure we're going to see nerfs again in the future, but the balance team has shown themselves to do some very random things. For example, they nerfed Silas mid, changed the way he's built, then they buffed him again, and now he's exactly in the same spot he was before. And that's all in a 2-patch time frame, so let's see where we go, but for now, Lilia is the queen of the jungle. And drooling his way past all isolation damages is the Kha'Zix champion. A bug for life, a grasshopper for ADCs in a squishy based meta, and a champion that can really go any evolved pathway he likes, just don't, go E first. Lethality item spikes are great for him, the general meta that he's facing is great for him, and the jungle meta is great for him. If you want to go more profane into Ghostblade kind of tech to sequence well, I covered that in a video the other day. If you want to go more for Ghostblade lethality PvP spiking and then kind of get that profane for mid-game farm sequencing, you can do that as well. All of the lethality build itemization plus Edge of Night basically grants you an eternal ability to control the meta, control games, and win. Just bear in mind that teamfighting as an assassin, in and out, don't jump in, stay in and die. Use your E resets, use your R evolve pathways, play around the unseen passive threat, and ensure you are actually able to kill priority targets, not chase down someone that isn't relevant. However, in terms of AD assassins, AD snowball, Kha'Zix is the king. Well, I'm not gonna do the Shyvana rant that I did last patch on the nerfs or slash buffs or whatever the hell that was for her. I'm not going to do that again. All I'm here to tell you is that despite all of that, she is still exactly the same champion with exactly the same overt stat checking ability, and the hybrid build is still the absolute best way to go. Yes, there are some AD on-hit varieties that do have some sort of traction, but ultimately it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're not maximizing the totality of her entire kit and scalings, whereas Shojin and Landry's does exactly that. The absolute biggest tip I can give you from what I see from bad Shyvanas is they don't understand how to exactly play around her ultimate. They don't use the empowered E, which is the thing that was juice buffed, and instead they're playing around, base form human or nuke bombs from range when they're AP. Sequence well, counter jungle lethally. Don't choose PvP moments that make no sense. Your ult is up very, very quickly. Get the grubs. Play around your 6 thereafter. Sequence ult, sequence ult, sequence ult. Yes, if you can rotate, but don't rotate as a tiny little human who's gonna get to a fight and basically look like Despicable Me minions versus anything actually useful. Play around the power dragon fantasy, build hybrid, win games, gather LP. Now, Viego has had his reign a little bit nerfed. Now, this is nothing to do with him, nothing to do with the jungle meta, nothing to do with matchups. The champion is still the best overall jungler in the game. But the Kraken nerfs did slightly affect him. Obviously, most people needed to adapt a little bit and just understand slightly reduced numbers. Okay, you do that, but then they go ahead and nerf Blade of the Ruin King by a little bit. While this isn't necessarily a baseline direct item, it does affect his win rate because it is one of those flexible decisions you can make. Do I need Kraken? Do I need Blade? Do I need Sundered Sky? Do I need Trinity Force? Obviously, Steric's third is just absolutely goated. Now, the Kraken Slayer into the Trinity Force Sundered Sky, pick your poison into the Steric's Gauge, those are still the best de facto builds. It will always work, it will always be good. But in those games where you also want that Blade of the Ruin King or you need that item for particular matchups, now that's where the nerfs combined from Kraken and Blade will affect win rate rate and his ability to perform in those particular scenarios. However, champion's still beast, champion's still skill issue, champion's still 1v9. Hecarim is honestly just having the absolute most quiet, dominant period he's ever had. When he runs at you even early, he's unkillable because of W buffs. He also has Twirly Whirly spam Q. Now obviously that's from the perspective of, say, not an S tier, top tier meta jungler, but that's a lot of champions in the game, and Hecarim can honestly Astro roll any single one of them. Like Lilia, for the way he spikes in the mid game and the late game, I don't think he's necessarily weak enough in those early skirmishes. Now that being said, if you play the right champions into him, you can eviscerate him. Things like Ivern and Talia do come to mind. Udyr can also be a slightly skill issue matchup, but as we all know, having Udyr and Hecarim in the game takes us back to 11.3 patch 2021, and it kind of makes us go a little feral in the wrong direction. Point is, yes, in theory, you sequence, you play around ult, you get objectives, you massively dominate the mid-game sequencing powerhouse moment where you just get super strong from farm, and then you run over the game. However, early game, do not perceive this as I can do nothing. You can do a lot, rotate whenever you can, control grubs always, get dragons as they pop up, and basically you should never have a Soul Elder Dragon coin flip in your life. While Nocturne does bringeth the darkness, he doesn't do it with the same kind of Shadow of Mordor that he has done in the few patches past, but it's still pretty damn good. The reason for that is when you shift other systems and other champions become strong, they can play well into him even if nothing changed for him directly. Now that isn't necessarily the case here, but it is an understatement that bad Nocturnes and bad players on these kind of level 6 champions are dying unnecessarily pre-6. With the added 4 seconds respawn time, you're losing an extra camp here, you're maybe not able to contest grubs there, that adds up to demise and sadness. So intelligent Nocturnes with the intelligent builds are still basically, just running over everybody, and you can carry on doing so. Kayn, we had a whole talk about, like Shyvana in the last patch, about balance and how strong he actually is. He is strong, stop getting it wrong. Blue Kayn, build lethality, 3 items, you get Edge of Night, you get Cyrilda's Grudge, and Rast is basically fantastic. The Eclipse into Cleaver buffed, into Sterix, Gauge, Death Stunts, this kind of stuff is always good on him and will always be good on him. If you're in an MMR where you're facing a lot of beefy people and not a lot of ADCs, then please, build normally like that and win games. If you're against a comp where you need to go Rast for chosen reasons and they're a bit more squishy and you need lethality, you can do that as well. Now I'm slapping Briar up here mainly for the 99% population who are playing the game. We've watched Briar's stats go up, her presence go up. The semi-global ultimate is absolutely a game changer for overstaying laners when other junglers don't help them push out. Totally didn't happen to me the other day, but the whole thing is she really just duels in an unparalleled way. It's very tough for a lot of champions to actually face her in any capacity. They have to path away from her, they have to try to get leads in other ways, and they always have to be sure that they have an advantage over her, so when she does go in, you can actually kill her and peel her and deal with her. If she's too fed, really there's not a lot you can do, and obviously we've got Profane Hydra tech, Eclipse tech. I'm cooking in my brain right now about Eclipse and Sundered Sky. That item combination is just absolutely disgusting. I like how we went from Divine Sunderer or Eclipse into a world where we've got a slightly weaker Divine Sunderer and Sundered Sky, and we can combine it with Eclipse. Both items do a little bit too much for my liking, and I think most people hate facing them, and a good Briar is executing a really good game plan, building these 2 items, building Sterix, and you're just winning. Next up on the A tier page, we have Udyr, who's been rising. Now, I've been very consistent about how good this champion has been since 1410 dropped. He's been in almost all, if not most, tier lists, and in the private infographic tier lists I give out to the Virkayu.gg members, he's definitely been talked about quite a lot. That's because the problem with League right now is shit that should die just doesn't, and that goes for items and champions across the board. And Udyr is one such champion, except he's always been that way. Build Leandries, build tank, never die, do a lot of damage. And yes, you don't have the, run at people face that you can do early game, but who cares when you scale like this absolute monster? Play Udyr, sequence hard, carry late game, easy mode. Although he is easy to pick up, he does have a high level of mastery. I do agree with that debate going on. The easy here is just because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to actually, pick him up and learn him. It does require a bit more time to really master the abilities. And I'm really glad we could shift over to Brand after talking about Udyr and finishing it with that sentence, because none of what I just said for Udyr applies to Brand. Take one IQ point, take another IQ point, rub them together. If you can start a fire, you can officially play Brand to high elo. Amazing! And he still does exactly that. Graves, on the other hand, will just light a cigar on this fire and then run over the map. However, the big caveat is here. 1, are you good mechanically on Graves? 2, are you a good jungler? Because if those 2 things are true, this champion's still really an S+ champion. His win rate is bad because while his itemization is good and potent, it's not as, shall we say, dominating as it has been in the past. It also means that it requires you to execute properly, but honestly, if you can just do a little bit of practice too with Graves, play some normals, play flex, watch some high elo VODs, understand the flow of decision making, it's not something you really need to study for 4 years easiest to pick up, but he is a little bit complicated. Shaco's complicated because of what it does to your psychosis, and how you then decide to spread that to ADCs. Now look, you all know I hate this champion. I know a lot of you hate this champion, but this champion is doing us a favor, because he is killing all of the squishy ADCs in all these other lanes, and he's making us happy about it, and that's honestly great. We can join together here. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We can work together to make sure ADCs stay in the bottom lane where they belong with their absolutely terrible macro failure to understand object permanence. That means the jungle walks past a ward and he disappears from vision. They think, he doesn't exist, even though he's still right there. That's where Shaco thrives. And then of course, mid-game spike, split push, don't settle for 5v5 team fights. Hey, enjoy yourselves. On behalf of junglers, thank you for killing ADCs. Now, if you are against such an evil champion and you happen to want to peel for your ADCs, one, we don't hate you for it, you just want LP, that's okay. But then you can play Mumu because of the buff's last patch to itemization, specifically the Abyssal Mask. If you don't remember, the champion that was kind of flirting with the edge of being pretty strong, now is pretty good. You got engage for your team, you got peel for your team, you can farm for your team, and you can duel for your team. For your team! Because there ain't no way you're playing this for yourself. Echo is one such champion to play for yourself. Now, I've been ignoring him for a little bit because I know he's strong, obviously, and he's been in that good spot, but he hasn't really been, quote-unquote, one of the best junglers. But just because you're not in a video called The Best Junglers doesn't mean you're a good, solid, strong jungler, right? Like, that's the difference between my videos and others. But now I'm comfortable saying that, yeah, you still one-shotting with a point and click, you got a 2.25 second stun, you got an ultimate reset button, we are against ADCs who are immobile most of the time, play Echo, sequence, win, easy. And obviously, Jarvan is one such champion for ganking, not necessarily assassinating and snowballing, and his data has been pretty good since the last round of buffs to his passive. I just didn't include him because it didn't really feel right. You face a Jarvan, you're like, eh. But then looking at how he was played in some VOD scouting for IELO, and then obviously doing it in coaching as well, watching his data rise with play rate and effectiveness, you basically look at this and say, this is a strong package champion for fighting, dueling, engaging, and of course amplifying attack speed with this flag, which allows you to take all the turrets when you get 6 scrubs and Herald, because that's what you should be doing anyway. Also, Lee Sin is here instead of Xin Xiao. Now, Xin Xiao's still great, I still love it, but look, let's face it, Eclipse, the item, it does too much. The shield being on a 6-second cooldown is an absolute ridiculous thing. You also have Sundered Sky, and Lee Sin likes both these items, much like Briar. The champion is actually quite easy to pick up and win with because of the missing HP execute on his Q. Not really an execute, but you know what I mean. And the legendary Kickathon, which just ruins everybody's day. He's also strong enough to remain relevant even if he's behind in levels just through these items and his kit, which means even if you have a rough one, especially with the death timer changes, he will still dominate all the faces with eyes. A little bit of a prejudice. And ironically, that means he doesn't actually like Syndra or Lissandra because they can deal with him. So there you go. Below Elo, nothing really changes this patch. I do think, obviously, the Lilia and the Shyvana are the absolute best. Nocturne is ridiculously strong. Mumu is ridiculously strong. Briar, Viego, Warwick, Volibear, all of these champs are strong. And now you're thinking, but isn't this more of a farming sequencing meta? Play around level 6 and such thing. You've spoken a lot about that. You are very correct. But in those metas, there's always a development that comes down the line where people realize, look, everyone like Lilias and Shyvanas and Nocturnes are sequencing. If I can cut in and gank lanes while they're doing that, get strong enough to actually push them out of their sequencing and control objectives, then I've got winning lanes, I'm able to PvP them, and their farming is rendered null and void. While this is not an exact parallel, obviously, it is important to understand that those champions can really run away even if you make mistakes later on with ending games with the power they gain from ganking a bit more. It's still best to control your farm and sequencing even in low elo, even with these other champions, with the exception of maybe the Warwick. You're still looking to control your camps around your ganks, control your quadrants around your ganks. You're not looking to AFK gank, it's not season 9. And that means the fallback to your experience is highly valuable as long as you understand the levels of the camps, right? Left click the camps, look at the level, this is a level 5 camp, make sure you're absorbing the highest level camps you can on the map around your ganks, and you'll notice you stick kind of even to those AFK farming junglers, but you have way more gold. And because you're better at PvP, you can kill them. However, a good sequencing playing around 6 level jungler who's counter jungling very well around those ganks will be able to maintain parity. So it's a great skillful matchup for you guys to learn in low elo, and these are the champions that will help you do it. Now for high elo, obviously we have the staples here and I'm including them. Yeah, the Rangers are always good and the OTPs in high elo. Yeah, the Udyr is absolutely cracked. Zac is still performing well. Shaco does well on the OTPs also. But really we're looking at, is the Shyvana or Brand still good in high elo? Their win rates are looking significantly worse. Vise is not looking that great. Jarvan is actually pretty solid. But when I watch scouting and I look at games played in high elo, and I see in coaching and especially Master Tier what champions are having the best tempo control, the best ability to actually be jungle diff, you still have Nidalee. Lily and Hecarim and Kha'Zix really do dominate. Lee Sin is obviously very cracked. I'm just putting him here because, again, there is a little bit of a skill issue. Not everyone in high elo has the mechanics to play Lee Sin. And while Virkayu has been hit a little bit, I still believe he's one of the absolute stable defaults and always will be in high elo. The two I include here that are lower on play rates are Bel'Veth and Ivern. They are still absolutely magnificent in high elo and in most elos actually. People just refuse to play it. Look, it's an ADC meta. Pick Ivern, win games. Hey look, the enemy jungler's farming and kind of chilling and playing around 6. Pick Bel'Veth and make them miserable. Control the map flow. Split push if your team suck. All of these champions give you something unique that you can execute upon in high elo. And the best way to take all of the champions in this video to actually climb is to understand the true meaning of 1v9 jungling. And that video on your screen now will tell you exactly how to do that.